Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kingwin 4 Charity Winter 2015 tournament. When we first came here today, we saw Ekop versus Naria in a pretty exciting series. Ekop started off with the Hunter, but in a twist of fate, Naria was actually able to beat the Hunter once and then sweep the series with Priest. Next, we'll have Massan versus Powder. This is another series that was interrupted, unfortunately, by DDoS in the past week. But this time, it's gonna be a little different. They're gonna be bringing the same classes, the same decks, and this time we actually won't have a 4-0 as the match result. Actually, when they first played, Massan actually beat Powder 4-0 because Powder actually disconnected 4 times. It's definitely a very interesting series, I'd say.
It was it was almost boring even for Massan himself. I mean, he realized very quickly. I mean, he'd been away from the game for a long time. You know, I think he'd been attending to something in his country for a while, and he couldn't actually come forth for tournaments for a long time. And now that he's back, his first tournament presence was against Spouter, who ended up disconnecting. So that's a pretty underwhelming presence as far as tournament goes, because it doesn't really bring you back the way that you maybe would like to be perceived. So that will allow him to get a really a legit quote-unquote series against Powder, bringing really nice post-GVG decks. And Powder also, really recent news, left I Heart You, I believe.
Yeah, last week we had some kind of funny business where he was incorrectly labeled as from Complexity Gaming, your team. and then he got changed to I Heart You. But this time he actually will be teamless. He is without a team right now. Currently looking for a team. So if you're a team owner, you might want to look to picking him up.
Yeah, very strong player. So if you've got anything in the ways of, getting new players on your team, Powder is definitely a good contender. So let's look at the lineups that the two players have brought. Massan brought, we saw it last week, Warrior, Druid, Paladin, and Mage. No Hunter in his lineup either, much like Naria, no Hunter there. And Powder brought Hunter, Paladin, Warrior, and Warlock, and that's kind of expected. He's brought very, very strong class lineup here, I feel, from Powder, but no Mage. Mage largely underrepresented in this tournament.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Massan between last week and this week. We noticed last week that he was running kind of more old school decks, and we conjectured that he might be running decks that were popular when he kind of left the scene for a few months. I actually asked him about that, and he's like, "No, I'm just playing with what I think is the strongest right now after pretty much testing everything." And also, he thinks that the metagame might have shifted again, like pretty much back to full circle. So like Warrior was strong, pretty much the strongest class at one point when GVG was first released, but then it began waning. But his logic is that basically the reverse metagame has the metagame has switched around basically.
Again, and so he's come up with a deck. So it's not that he's not prepared, it's that he prepared in the way that he thought was the strongest, which happens to look like pre-GVG decks.
Exactly.
Interesting. All right, cool.
Okay. Now we have our match has actually started, and Massan just getting ready for the match. Actually, getting back to his seat right now. Oh wow, he I think he brought a little stack with him as well.
Yeah. Getting prepared for that, warrior plays. I mean, you have to expect the games to go on and on and on. So we got, Handlock versus Warrior here. We didn't really speak of the bans, but we'll cover that as soon as we're in. I think the Mage was banned. No, Massan banned the Hunter and Powder banned the Druid from Massan. That's right.
Yeah, of course, Massan, I believe, is not playing a Hunter, so it makes sense that Hunter was abandoned.
Yeah, of course.
But Massan, very smart, banning the Hunter, which has been pretty much the cancer of everyone in this tournament right now.
Yeah, it's been really problematic for many players. So Handlock against Warrior, there is no Twilight Drake in hand, but there is a Mountain Giant, which is probably going to come down fairly soon. And Massan's array of answers right now is pretty much execute based.
Yeah, execute based indeed. We see Powder's deck is actually, it looks fairly anti-aggro. There's 2 Hellfires and 1 Explosive Sheep in the deck, so all anti-aggro cards basically.
Yeah, you generally don't see Explosive Sheeps too many times if you're expecting control, obviously. So we have to assume that Powder was expecting a heavy aggro representation, which right now is not exactly what he's facing.
Now, turn 2, the Sunfury Protector comes down on the field, and Sunfury Protector is actually, in the late game, one of the key cards in this matchup, because once it comes down to it, usually this matchup is about, can I survive long enough that Grom doesn't kill me? And Sun Fury Protector is one of those cards that um, protects you from Grom, basically. It's one of your taunts or taunt activators. You basically have 2 Sun Furies, 1 Defender of Argus, and 2 Sludge Belchers. And that's all that stands between you and a charging Grom to your face.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he would choose to draw the Sun Fury right here because it's cheaper than Defender of Argus, and in this case, I mean, in that way, makes it a lot easier to just drop in between 2 minions late game if the warrior's been touring around with your health total.
Yeah, pretty standard turns by both players. One player plays a giant, the other player plays an answer to the giant.
Yep. I mean, the Cruel Taskmaster was a really nice card here for Massan to find because he had the execute, but he didn't have any way to deal damage to the giant outside of sacrificing his face into it, which would have removed the armor and thus prevented the ability for him to get a good shield slam perhaps later on.
Yeah, that Sludge Belcher was unfortunately 1 turn too late.
Yeah, it would have been much better last turn, but...
Yeah. Sheep, it's not usually useful in controlled matchups, but oh wow, 2 Sheeps. Sheeps, it's not usually that useful in controlled matchups, but it usually is more useful than what we saw there. Usually you can do like a Sheep or a double Sheep on the board and then Mortal Coil one of your Sheeps, and you get a kind of like a pseudo Flame Strike, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, and Baron Geddon here are going to be the perfect answer in combination with Shield Maiden to deal with Dr. Boom. Are the bombs going to be able to kill this guy? No, they're not. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah, no Mortal Coils in Powder's hand. Because we see him running double Sheeps, we can kind of conjecture that he might be running a Mortal Coil as well.
At least one. I mean, it's pretty standard to be running at least... Mortal Coils and Explosive Sheeps and Handlock tend to go hand in hand. They're so good together. It's really hard to justify running one and not the other.
Yeah, Massan has a pretty good hand right now, but it's definitely not exactly what he wants. He just wants a lot of threats right now. He gets an Acolyte of Pain, which is good card draw, but I expect that to be silenced fairly quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't allow the opponent Control Warrior to get his combo Grom Hail Screams to kill you very quickly, so...
What do you think about the decision to just play the Acolyte of Pain on the board instead of comboing it with something like a Whirlwind effect?
So I mean, instead of waiting for the Deathbite first charge, for instance, to be used?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, people... I would tend to value the waiting for Whirlwind to be more valuable. But this might force the opponent... putting it down on the board right now might lock up some of the Warlock's mana to a point where he can't really develop the board any further. Because if you let him have a completely, let's say, empty board to go from, then it might be a bit more problematic for you. So getting at least that 1/3 body to threaten the execute.
Yeah, maybe it's also that he isn't running Whirlwind, or like he doesn't really particularly want to use a Cruel Taskmaster on it because he's already used one, and there's the second one he might be saying for the Grom combo. I don't know. That might be his line of thought.
Yeah, we saw him play last time. He went very aggressive. I remember some YOLO rag play that meant like it was really unusual. I just remember that from last week.
Yeah, Powder not giving the best of draws right now. He's only drawn one of his 4 big threats in the beginning of the game, which are the 2 Mountain Giants and the 2 Twilight Drakes.
Yep. This is a really... I mean, the BGH is able to deal with this alongside with Shadow Flame, but it's a bit of a... I mean, do you think Powder is really worried about Grom right now? Because 3 cards have been sitting... I mean, 2 cards on the far left of Massan's hand have been just sitting there idle. So you have to assume that they probably are exactly what you want to see.
I think as the handlock player, you're always worried about Grom Hellscream. Yeah, you don't actually have to use your Shadow Flame here. I guess...
Sylvana's Shadow Flame could steal the Dr. Boom.
I don't think that's value enough, though.
No, there's very little value in it, but...
I think something like Trade, Mortal Coil, and either BGH or Siphon Soul would be pretty good.
Yeah, because you'll have to keep... Well, then again, you want to keep at least 1 removal piece for the, Alex Strauss that is going to come down eventually. Because she is at least played. If not an optimal play, because he doesn't want to necessarily give you 2 Jiraxises in a way. It's at least a card that's in the warrior deck.
Oh, 1 to the face. That's probably the best you could hope for.
Yeah, exactly. Keeps the slime alive to tank the second hit for 4. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh, 1 to the face again. Wow.
This is insane. The Powder's Powder's RNG here on those boom bots. Really stellar. And we're seeing right now the decision to not wait on the Acolyte of Pain to be able to get a Whirlwind effect is starting to maybe eat up at Massan's hand a little bit. Perhaps a little bit too much, in fact.
Yeah, Massan's hand is looking a bit anemic. It's only 5 cards in his hand right now. And he doesn't have many other card draw options. He expended a shield block. He used up his 1 Acolyte. And pretty much, usually these days, there's only 1 shield block in typical warrior decks. So there's pretty much only 1 Acolyte as Massan's only card draw left.
Yeah, Shield Maiden is generally... I mean, post-GVG, Shield Maiden being the strong card that it is, has made that specific second shield block a little irrelevant and maybe a bit redundant. And wow, 2 Siphon Souls right now. That's answers for days.
What do you think about using the Death Spite or the Fire War Axe to clear the BGH instead of the Death Spite? I feel like the Death Spite can maybe be like it can be a bit more threatening for the handlock player, force them to play a bit more defensive because it's also a built-in whirlwind effect to activate Grom.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now that you mention it, he seems to be. I feel like Massan right now could get a lot of value out of mind gaming his opponent. And definitely the Death Spite would have been a bit more threatening. I mean, it follows up pretty well to wipe boars with executes or just 5 health minions that have been maybe not played yet. Definitely a good point.
Like if Massan does something weird like, if Powder does something like, yeah, exactly, like silence the Belcher and then attack the Armor Smith, then that puts the Sylvanas at a 5/4 body. And it's just really awkward for Massan to deal with without equipping the Death Spite again.
The Death Spite, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, like, with this play, Massan's kind of wasted 1 charge of his Fire War Axe.
Oh, he does not kill the Armor Smith.
Harrison Jones a really good draw for Massan. Like, I was talking about how Massan didn't have any other forms of card draw.
Yeah, well, there it is.
Yeah, in this matchup, Harrison Jones is actually a form of card draw. Because typically you can get 7 cards off the Harrison Jones.
Yeah, and we're looking right now. I mean, he equipped the Death Spite. You know, he did waste a charge from the Fiery War Axe, but maybe the idea was to conceal that Death Spite to make sure that it would get value. Because he might have played differently if he'd known there was a Death Spite coming up.
If Powder can kind of read a bit into it and he saw where the Death Spite was coming from relative to the position in the hand, he would have known that he had the Death Spite all along, but he didn't choose to equip it the first time when he was attacking the BGH. So that he can kind of try to make a read that, oh, he didn't have Grom at the time that he equipped the Fire War Axe.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Powder going for the taunt immediately, denying. I mean, that basically denies him the ability to get a good prevention for Grom later on.
Yeah, not much to say about this play. Just,
yeah, very standard.
Yeah, exactly.
The answer on BGH is already on the board, so this is all... Yeah. I mean, double anti-kill bot just brings it back up to full health.
Yeah. Like,
not that it matters.
At this point,
ooh, wow.
Powder has a huge hand, but not much to do with it. Except Lord Jaraxxus, which will put this game into overdrive because Harrison Jones will come down, and then Massan will immediately draw 7 cards.
But there's absolutely 0 value right now in Jaraxxus. I mean, it's putting you at a point in health where you absolutely cannot use your anti-heal bots effectively. Or almost not. And, you know, losing the weapon means that, number 1, all you're going to get are Infernals, which is, you know, admittedly pretty good, but there is absolutely nothing you can do. The Warrior just drew his entire deck. Which means every single bit of removal that he's got is just sitting there and waiting to be used.
And again, even though he has Infernals, he lost one of the cards that he could use to activate the Infernals early game. He lost the Sun Fairy Protector. So right now, he basically only has, I believe, 1 Shadow Flame and 1 Sun Fury and 1 Defender of Argus, which with he can use to activate the Giants.
Yeah, and he actually just used the Sun Fury Protector right now to activate that Infernal and that Giant. But, you know, all it takes for the Warrior is a little bit of execute play, some, Shield Slam, Brawl, anything. There's so many ways for him to deal with this board in, like, the most absolutely effective manner.
Yeah,
yeah, this is actually perfect. Shield Maiden with the Shield Slam Whirlwind play. is pretty much optimal.
Is that? I think it's lethal actually.
Yeah, I think he's got exactly, well, not exactly, a little bit over lethal by
Yeah.
1.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can't leave the 8 power on the board plus the death spite on the board, even
Yeah.
with 2 taunts.
Yeah, maybe he just, I mean, he was afraid of Grom, and playing around Grom, I understand his line of play. But the play was probably, I don't even know that playing Jiraxis was that strong last turn.
I think at
How
that
do you feel
point,
about it?
well, at the point that was at, he didn't have any threats in his hand. Like his hand was basically 3
Anti-kill
AOEs, or actually he had 4 AOEs, 2 anti-kill bots and a Siphon Soul plus Jiraxis. So not
Very
the best.
anti-aggro. His deck definitely super tailored around aggro, which, I mean, Control Warrior is the absolute antithesis, I don't know, of that. So many dead cards sitting there. I mean, Explosive Sheeps, for one, double Hellfire, not exactly the most stellar thing. So Powder's gonna have to pick another deck from his lineup.
Yeah, I believe this situation came up actually in the last match that they played, where the warrior from Massan beat the handlock of Powder, and immediately Powder chose his Paladin deck, which traditionally is a counter to Warrior. It's actually one of the reasons Warrior has been declining in popularity. One is because of the BGH. Everyone's running BGH, so a lot of the Warrior threats have become neutered. And the second reason is because Paladin has just increased in popularity the past few days.
Yeah, and it
The
makes,
past
you
few
know,
weeks.
cards like Shield and Mini Bots just are such a nightmare because Fiery War Axe just doesn't deal with it very effectively. So you need to get your little Armor Smiths and Acolytes of Pain to deal with it. And the 1/1s, unless you're running Whirlwind, which we saw Massan is running one of, that's a card that's also been coming back a lot since GVG due to the Muster for Battle just being prevalent all over the place. And, you know, it deals with some of the aggro from Hunter, you know, Haunted Creepers, Leftovers. So Whirlwind is a card that's coming back, and that's an adaptation to GVG because Warriors were declining, but you know you can tech them to deal with some of the Paladin aggression in many ways.
Yeah, many players are even playing 2 Whirlwinds because they're just so scared of the Paladins. But I think right now Whirlwind in Paladin is you at least run it as a one of. There's just basically no question about that.
Yeah, it's too strong not to run because the upside, I mean, the downside of losing to just a straight up Muster for Battle early game is so devastating because you need to find at least one way to AoE, and you've got Brawl essentially and Death Spite AoE. And if you don't have them right away, it's going to be really problematic. And I mean, if Muster falls down turn 3 and you don't have an answer right now, Death Spite comes out turn 4, and then he's got enough time to get to turn 5 with the Quartermaster, which is way too late already.
Yeah, especially if Paladin is on the coin, then he can turn 3 Quartermaster, turn 4, turn 3 Muster, turn 4 Quartermaster.
Yeah, it's just way too much advantage here. You need Brawl or you're dead. So we're gonna jump right into the game, and Powder again picking his Paladin deck as should be expected. His only other deck after this is surprisingly a Warrior deck, so it's gonna be a Control Warrior mirror match possibly, if this Paladin doesn't win against the Control Warrior from Powder, from Massan. Alright, really nice hand here from Powder.
I would say that probably this is Powder's strongest and most trusted deck right now. Powder is kind of known for being a Warrior player. He was the first player to take Warrior to High Legend, and I believe the first all Warrior decks these days are based off of his incarnation of his first incarnation of Paladin. Sorry, did I say Warrior?
Yeah, you said Warrior, but I understood you meant Paladin.
Yeah,
it's understood. Yeah, so
He's
we
also
see here the Shield Minibot, like the aggravating card that Massan just can't really deal with very effectively.
Well, I'd say the Acolyte is a pretty good answer. I would say it's now Powder that can't deal with the Acolyte very well. I mean, he can kill it, but it essentially has drawn 2 cards, plus taken off the shield from the Shield of the Minibot.
Yeah, it's done its job, but I mean, you already know, unless he's got a True Silver Champion on the coin, generally Acolyte of Pain is going to be dealt with in a very inefficient manner as Paladin. You know, it's always the same scenario.
The downside of that previous play by Massan is that he can't coin out the Death Spite anymore, so this board might be just pretty threatening for him right now.
Yeah, but he's got the Brawl at least. He says, you know what, even if he gets a Quartermaster, at least I've got the Brawl to get me back in the game.
You know, when we last saw this deck from Powder, it actually had a... Whoa, just...
Wow. Ouch. I mean, do you even play it, though? It's not necessary.
I think you actually save it a bit.
Yeah, I think right now the Death Spite is going to be such a devastating play. with the whirlwind on the following turn that you're not too worried about this.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about this card, the Ysera. Last time we saw Ysera from Powder's deck, and it was kind of curious because no other Paladin I know runs Ysera. And I actually, after last week's broadcast, I asked him about it, and he basically said, "Oh, I ran it because I've been seeing a lot of druids. Druids have been becoming more popular, which it is, and basically he teched the Ysera against druids because it just straight up won against some of the slower druids without combo some of the time."
Yeah, that's a really nice deck addition, I think, to his Paladin deck. Oh, goodness. Massan's turn this turn. The Zombie Chow is all... Actually, it's heaven sent. Powder playing Zombie Chow last turn, giving Massan even more bang for his buck with that Death's Bite and the Whirlwind play. This is absolutely insane. So, although Powder was way ahead on board, that Whirlwind Death's Bite just straight up equalized things.
Yeah, there's so many resources put into that by Powder, so many cards, and they're just all cleared so easily by the Warrior. The Warrior was actually kind of looking a bit in trouble because the board was kind of threatening and he was at such a low health. But from all the armor that he gained last turn and from the healing from the Zombie Chow, he's looking perfectly fine right now.
Yeah, he's not, and he's got answers to a lot of things right now between the Brawl and the Shield Slam and the Harrison Jones for a weapon. So if anything comes up, Tyrion Forging might be the biggest problem, if anything. And even then, you know, Dr. Boom is such a problematic moment.
His hand just looks so balanced with just a bunch of creatures, a bunch of removals, and even he has a finisher in the form of Grom, and he has a Harrison Jones in case his opponent gets too much armor.
Yeah, exactly. There's like, he can afford to be either the control player or the beatdown player, depending on how he has to end up playing those turns. And this Death Bite here going to secure a little bit of a bigger edge even. I mean, how do you... I mean, Lay on Hands is going to be the crucial play here. Going to give Powder, he's gonna have to use it even if he's high on health, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that Powder also runs one anti-kill bot and one Guardian of Kings.
Taking very anti-aggro, we saw his Warlock deck with double explosive sheep, and I feel like his Paladin deck is also very anti-aggro as far as tailoring goes. He's made it definitely heavily anti-aggro. I'm actually surprised because we haven't seen too much of it outside of Hunter.
That was actually interesting. I think I might have considered healing something else besides his face, because he healed basically for one to the face.
He might have healed Sylvanas after attacking the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, healing for Sylvanas for 3, or maybe even healing the Slime for 1 seems a bit better.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. It's definitely the better play. Yeah, you're right. Killing Sludge Belcher and healing the Slime forces the opponent to use his Slime and his Armor Smith in order to kill yours. He didn't want to kill a Sludge Belcher though, but I feel like one of the, you know, that Lay on Hands was just an automatic reflex because you're so used to just throwing it out there on your face.
Exactly.
As a systematic play.
If he didn't want to kill the Sludge Belcher, he might as well have like killed his Slime for 1, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So Massan going to surrender his ability to draw a card off the Acolyte of Pain.
He just really doesn't want to give his opponent the Acolyte of Pain, I guess. This because of the Lay on Hands, this match is kind of reset though.
Yep.
I think a turning point for Powder might be the Tyrion, and
there's no Iron Beak Cowl now. And,
if there's no silence in Massan's hand, then Tyrion can just get too much value.
Oh, Baron Geddon coming out to deal with that one too. I can't say that's what I expected, oddly enough.
You know, I actually heard something funny about Baron Geddon. When I was at BlizzCon, I was talking to some Blizzard developers, and they actually told me that out of every card in the game, if you had Baron Geddon in your deck when playing ranked, you had the highest win rate.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of makes a bit of sense, because I think Baron Geddon is not a card that you would think to automatically include in your decks. But it's a card that you have to put a lot of thought into before putting in your decks. And the players who put the most thought into building their decks are typically the players that win the most.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this Ragnaros from Massan? I mean, he instantly, like, just put it down on the board. Like, no thought. Just straight up 1 second play Ragnaros.
I mean, it was a fair turn to Ragnaros because there were just so many good targets to hit. He hit a Zombie Chow, which is not bad, but yeah, I guess anything that wasn't faced was a pretty good result, or would have been a pretty good result.
You wouldn't have felt more. I guess you're playing into equality if you flood the board at this point because you haven't seen a single one. So I guess there's a really good reason for that, Ragnaros. Um, yeah, it makes a lot more sense now that you mention it that way.
All right, just the quality to clear up the Ragnaros.
If he plays Tyrion, he's going to be in a world of hurt after that brawl Harrison Jones.
Well, then again, Brawl might not actually kill.
Oh, but he's got to try. I mean, it's a 66% chance to kill it, right?
Oh, he actually does kill it.
And this is not at all what Powder wants to see. And the Harrison Jones puts the Ashbringer in a museum, making Powder just cringe from pain. The Harrison Jones doing so much work here from Massan.
Look at Powder's face. He's in such pain right now.
Yeah, you can tell he's just crushed beneath the weight of the museum. I mean, we're about to open an exposition for this.
You know what's funny? I don't believe. Oh, there's the execute. But
yeah,
if Massan actually couldn't kill the Sarah without that execute.
Yeah, if he hadn't found it, he would have been able to get another card, another dream card out of that Isera. And now Powder's face. Let's look at it again.
It's kind of off to the side a bit. Oh,
yeah, I don't see it well enough. Alright, that's unfortunate. I think he just doesn't want to be seen. Oh goodness. Powder knowing that a lot of his threat, I mean, his two biggest threats were answered at this point. I mean, Dr. Boom is a threat, but it's mostly a tempo threat and a massive board swing, but it's not really going to win you the game if you're, that far behind.
Yeah, we don't actually even know if Powder is running Dr. Boom because we've seen Ysera and we've seen Tyrion and we've seen Guardian of Kings in that 7 spot.
Yeah.
And those are all creatures that have under 7 health or below. So I think a lot of players, when they're building their decks, they're trying to avoid that 7 attack.
7 attack, yeah.
Yeah, just so they don't play into BGH, I guess.
Yep. Alright, so Harrison Jones is going to pop a shield. The Cruel Taskmaster trades itself away. Oh, wow. Alright, well, Massan had a really rough start, but that Whirlwind Deathspite into perfect follow-ups. And I think if Brawl had left the Tyrion up, this would have been a much different game.
Yeah, indeed. Massan pretty much didn't have a response to Tyrion without that. If Tyrion had survived, he just got this owl, but if Tyrion survived, he wouldn't have been able to Harrison Jones. He wouldn't have been able to draw those 3 cards, so that owl would have come like something like 6 turns later or something.
Yeah, way too late at that point, definitely. Now Shield Slam on that 5/6. I mean, equality is still in the hand of Powder, so Consecration could help reset the board in some way, but it's still not going to feel amazing. I mean, you're giving him 5 armor, you're taking damage from the Boom Boss, and he still has Grom and Alex Strauss on his deck.
Yeah,
wow.
Wow, that's pretty decent. But just judging by the composition of what Powder has revealed in his deck, I don't expect a second of land hands to be in it. So right now, Powder, I think, is just going to draw 1 card per turn, and he's not going to be able to deal with the Acolyte of Pain that's in Massan's hand, plus Massan, the 5 or 6 cards that Massan will have next turn.
Yeah, wow, and you saw that Boombot just exploding on Knife Juggler, which is the best result I think Massan could have asked for. I mean, what do you even do at this point? Anything you do is going to feed cards to the warrior. Your anti-heal bot is a completely dead card, and now you've got no board.
Yeah,
he's got 35 effective health, 37 even.
He's playing super safe and just trying to play around Quartermaster at this point.
Yeah, he's starving up his opponent. Yet.
Oh, Karen Bloodhoofs, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, with that Iron Beak Owl, it gets pretty low on value, but it otherwise would have been pretty good.
Yeah, normally you want to save your Iron Beak Owl against Tyrion, but Massan dealt with Tyrion so well that he didn't need this owl for Tyrion. He can just afford to use it on Karen right now.
Yeah, and Powder's face is again going to go the rage on that face, and there it is. Powder just realizing this warrior has all the answers in the world, and I can't do anything. Massan is just going to drop Grom alone. Is he? I thought he was for a second there. I was a little surprised.
This is kind of just like textbook warrior, basically. If you want to show, if you have a friend that's getting into Hearthstone, and you want to show him this is how you play warrior, this is what a perfect warrior game kind of looks like. this is what you show them pretty much.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. I mean, it's textbook warrior. It's starving out your opponent by just having all the answers turn after turn, and you don't even kill them that fast in the late game unless you manage to get the perfect Alex Straza. Initially, I don't know if you remember, but a long time ago, Control Warrior played a lot more like this than it did the Alex Straza, 1-2 punch with Grom. It turned out to be a lot slower than it is nowadays.
Oh man, yeah, definitely. But did you see that? Powder drew the second true silver in a row, and his head just went off the camera for a second.
No, I didn't see that. Did you just face palm or face desk?
Yeah, face desk pretty much describes it perfectly.
Oh, and there's still a Sylvanas in Massan's deck. Wow.
We've been saying that Powder is in such a good position, or sorry, Massan is in such a good position, but I wonder how many cards each player has right now.
Yeah.
I think it's possible if just Powder clears one more time. Like if he draws an equality the very next turn, then it might be likely that Massan is starved out. We've seen Dr. Boom, Ragnaros, and Dr. Boom and Ragnaros from Massan so far. But basically he has Alex Straza left in his deck as the only threat. Oh, there it is. Alex Straza and Grom.
And now equality is going to be the only maybe winning play here from Powder, if anything. There is no more Cruel Taskmaster to enrage Grom Hellscream. I think that's a good game because he can't shield. Actually, he cannot shield slam, and Powder does not find the second equality, and he concedes to the Warrior. So Warrior, winning against Paladin, which is not something I can safely say I expected.
I think a lot of it was how the
Paladin was built.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say that. There were knife jugglers, which typically isn't that good in this matchup, and there were zombie chows, a lot of just lower range cards. Even though we had Ysera, even though we had Tyrion, and I believe those were the only two threats actually, were they?
Yeah, pretty much. We saw no other late game. I mean, maybe there was a Ragnaros hiding in the deck list, but as far as I understood, the deck was very anti-aggro. It had a pretty good start, but the Whirlwind and the Deathbite from Massan I think that's what sealed the game. Quite frankly, if that hadn't been played, I think that would have been a little bit of a different outcome.
Yeah, but the Ysera, the Tyrion, and also the Cairn, which is typically very good against warriors, they were just all dealt with so effectively. Basically, all of Powder's threats, Massan had a direct counter to it. It's not typical that you see that, but I think the Harrison Jones on the Ashbringer was pretty much the big turning point in the game. It was at that point where Warrior got pretty much every card in his hand, and he was able to match up the appropriate response to all the threats that Powder could dish out.
Yeah, card for card. And it was interesting because usually the Iron Beak Owl is not used late game on a Cairn. It's used on Tyrion to guarantee that he's not going to get the Ashbringer. I mean, there was a 66% chance of Tyrion dying to that brawl, so the odds were in Massan's favor. But after, I mean, it's not something I expect to see in the same game. That Whirlwind into Deathbite into the brawl, Harrison Jones. That was like those were two turns where the game was decided, very thoroughly.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna have perhaps the final game of the series. The final game of the series. It's gonna be a Warrior versus Warrior mirror. This is actually mirroring our first series where Massan opened up with Warrior. He took out Powder's Handlock, and then he took out Powder's Paladin. Although both those games were kind of ended in disconnects, I have to say.
Yeah, the first time around they were ended in disconnects, but I think he still had the edge in those games. Wait, no. One of the first games where Powder, I believe there was a little issue where I think Massan went YOLO Rag and Powder could have come back, given a different set of plays. I think he was able to stabilize after the Ragnaros. So I think the first time around with the disconnects, Massan won them, but he wasn't in that dominating of a position. But now Powder he's only got one deck left, and that's the Warrior. So Mirror Match Warrior, these matchups often go to fatigue. Not systematically, but quite frequently, and it usually boils down, for card play. I play a threat, you play an answer, and it's usually who can get two threats on the board at once that don't get answered, who starts snowballing damage, removing the armor, denying the shield slams that come from the armor, and at that point, it's a matter of not overextending into brawls, and you can generally secure wins that way.
I think typically whoever draws the Acolytes early on has a pretty big advantage just because they have way more card advantages than their opponent. They have more threats, more answers, and here we go, starting with the third game, or third game of the series.
Yep, third game of the series. Powder's last deck is the Warrior. I mean, his Hunter was banned by Massan, which I think is an amazing call on Massan's part, because people who did not ban Hunter so far have been a little punished, although Naria did get a really nice priest game against it. Alright, no Acolytes of Pain either hand here.
Yeah, Powder, he actually kept the Armor Smith in his opening hand. What do you think about that play?
I think that's a generally pretty weak card against in mirror match control Warrior, because you generally want to get your weapons, you want to get those Acolytes of Pain very early. I'd almost even want to get a Sludge Belcher over any of those very quickly, most of the time, but...
Yeah, personally, I don't think it's that strong. Like, there's an Armor Smith on the board, sure, but it can just be dealt with like with a simple Death Spite. And even if it gets Cruel Taskmastered and the other Warrior player goes a bit aggro, it can get dealt with a Fiery War Axe at that point.
Yeah. Exactly, and you're not really losing too much. So I feel like keeping the Armor Smith might have been a bit of a mistake, because you know you're in for the long game. I mean, you know your opponent's not an aggro warrior. You just faced him. You're not gonna need that armor on turn 3. Like, it's just not gonna be something you're gonna need.
Yeah, I like I think in this matchup you really want your weapons and you want your Acolytes of Pain. You want that draw power, and you want to deny your opponent the draw power.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So playing Fiery War Axe here to start killing the Armor Smith is probably the good play. It's essentially going to be a 1-for-1 unless a Whirlwind is played, because the Fiery War Axe will just be traded for the Armor Smith.
Yeah, at least in this matchup, past the Acolytes of Pain, the Fiery War Axes aren't that useful. Warrior has just such big minions that pretty much all you're going to be able to Fiery War Axe are the Armor Smiths, the Cruel Taskmasters, the Acolytes of Pain, and the slimes that come out of the Sludge Belchers.
Yeah, and I feel like, oh wow, that Black Knight actually going to get some pretty interesting value here for Powder, although he still can't get rid of the slime, which is going to be able to kill the Armor Smith in a pretty good way. Do you like the attack the Black Knight and then the Whirlwind trade with a Fiery War Axe, or nope, apparently not? I feel like that could have been a play just to wipe the board off of the Whirlwind, but he might be keeping the Whirlwind for Dr. Boom Execute.
Oh, very true. I like the Whirlwind plus the Acolyte, though.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good play, but...
Yeah.
Ooh.
Shield Slam on a Black Knight.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. I feel like that's a case of I'll shield block and I'll see what I get. And depending on that, then I'll, maybe adapt my playstyle. And so Powder actually has the Acolyte of Pain and Cruel Taskmaster. That's exactly what we talked about earlier, where if you can get some extra value, if you can guarantee more than one card off of the Acolyte of Pain, you're generally going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, Massan has a decision right now. Does he want to deny one draw, or does he want to save this owl for a Sylvanas? Nope.
I think you have to keep it for Sylvanas, at least. At least that much.
Okay, so Massan's going to use his Whirlwind right now.
Yeah, that's a good play. He's guaranteeing 2 cards off the Acolyte of Pain, no matter what the outcome is. Matching his opponent, who played Cruel Taskmaster onto the Acolyte of Pain. This is a pretty similar scenario.
It's like a Geddon turn.
Yeah, I guess you just throw it on the board and you force your opponent to have an answer, and if he doesn't, then you're going to pack... you're going to remove all his armor at this point.
Geddon is kind of interesting in that it's kind of like a big threat, but it's not the biggest threat. Like, it's threatening, but you kind of don't want to use your premium removals on it as much as you do on Ragnaros or Alexstrasza.
Yeah, like BGH, you don't feel good about using that.
Oh, what a miss.
Is it that big of a deal, though? I mean, is he forced in a position of shield block? Actually, wait. He has to use 3 cards here. Unless... Yeah, I think the Ragnaros was either way pretty good, because it either killed Geddon, and your opponent was going to shield slam it, or in this specific case, he has to play, then shield slam execute.
No,
or some kind of awkward play.
You can just shield.
What? Wow, he could have shield slam...
I think he messed up.
Yeah, he could have shield block, armored up, shield slam, attack face, and pass. Because Baron Geddon's AoE would have finished off Ragnaros.
Exactly, I think Powder miscounted his mana, actually. So, wow, so this Ragnaros is gonna live.
Whoa, I think a bit of a misplay here by Powder, who seems to be realizing it right now. And finally, Massan finds a justification to put down that BGH. He has a gut feeling that his opponent simply doesn't have the execute because it wasn't used last turn, but that would be a mistake. The opponent does have it. It was just a bit of a misplay.
Yeah, Power gets hugely punished for that misplay. Basically,
It ends up working out though.
Yeah, the Ragnaros was able to get a free Geddon kill.
So he got 8 damage for free to the face in the end.
I mean, even though Powder made that mistake, he's definitely still in the game.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't a game-winning mistake or a game-losing mistake, I guess, but it could have been a much more difficult situation to recover from.
Warrior just has so many ways to gain life, and as long as you're not below 15, I think you're pretty safe. Typically, you don't see Warriors naturally going down from 30 to 15 in this matchup just because Alex Straza exists.
Yeah, well, this is a really good turn here from Massan, though, because if you look at the current board, he can weaken Dr. Boom down to 1 health with a shield slam, attack phase, remove all of the armor from his opponent, whittle down the boom bots, and then put down a threat of his own. And that means Alex Straza is just going to put him on a, you know, a Grom clock. It's a mind game a little bit, because he doesn't have Grom, obviously, but it does force his opponent into a very defensive position.
I don't think there's a way for Massan to clear this, actually.
Death's Bite, Fiery War Axe, Execute.
Yeah, well,
that's really weird.
There's obviously a way for him to clear it.
Yeah, but an effective one, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he decides to go for the attack the minion, and he does play into Grom, but he says, you know what, if he has it, then so be it, which I think is the right way to approach this situation.
I think this is a
actually this is a 50-50 kill. Ragnaros Fiery War Axe to the face.
Yeah, fairly.
Is it?
Well, no, it's
he's one off.
Yeah, but I think this is still a fairly clear Rag turn. You're not sad about anything that Rag hits. I think you prefer the Shield Maiden, but 8 to the face is still pretty good.
Alright, so the Fiery War Axe probably going to the face here, obviously, trying to put his opponent on a really, really close clock. And that might force a defensive Alex Straza.
So once again, there's actually no way to clear this.
Well, there is, but you have to use your weapon and your 5-5. But look at the amount of damage that's going to be taken here.
Well, the other option would have been to use Grom.
Try to brawl.
Clear.
Oh,
no, yeah.
Oh yes, Grom Hellscream, but
yeah,
that is risky.
Yeah, Massan not very happy about what he's forced to do. BGH off the top.
Crazy draw here.
I should be more careful about saying there's no way. There's obviously some way.
Yeah, there's always some way, but it's always a matter of how efficient is it really, right? That's really the question in these matchups. Is how efficient is it for him to really do the play that he made or not? So the Shield Maiden will go down to the Cruel Taskmaster and the Fire War Axe, which guarantees a Ragnaros hit to the face of 8. Brawl. If this is not a brawl turn, then nothing is a brawl turn. Is Kit Kat's right?
We don't know.
We'll see in a second if Kit Kat's lied. Wait, he's not playing the Armorsmith. I
think he's just saying whatever survives, as long as it's not Ragnaros, I can afford to Death Spite it.
Yeah, but it's 25-75 versus 33-66, right? Like, I think I'm taking the 25 a lot more often.
I think it's just the Armorsmith also isn't that valuable in this matchup. When BGH survives...
And Kit Kat slide.
Oh, you actually can't, Death Spite.
Yeah, you don't have the mana for it because you played the Armorsmith. But I feel like the payoff is still good enough in this case.
I think I would have preferred not playing the Armorsmith and having the option to Death Spite in that case. I don't know. But I guess with the Armorsmith play, he's saying that I'm in such a bad position that I need this Armorsmith to win. Yeah,
he has to go all in, and if he doesn't get it, then it's a really problematic position. And looking at this board here...
No, this is just... Is this... No, it's barely not lethal, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the brawl, essentially. Because he's got the weapon and at least one minion, so he has to have one of his minions live, and then he can't go through the slime, so... He needs some sort of a silence. Do you just play the Iron Beak Owl for a body here? Trade it into the BGH?
Well, no, because the Death Spite just kills it.
Yeah.
Shield block, okay.
Uh-oh, if you find Shield Slam, he Sylvanas' and then kills her. Oh, and that is it! This is good game. Wait, what?
No, this works too.
Well, it does work, but...
The other play is more flashy, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's flashier. It's just cooler. All right,
And,
so well played here. That's a game taken.
yeah, so at least Powder is still in this game, or in this match rather. He has 1 point on the scoreboard. Now Massan's probably, I would say, his most threatening deck, and the deck he's most comfortable with, Warrior, is going to be thrown out, and Massan will have to lead with his other decks, which include a Paladin or a Mage.
Yeah, I think Paladin is the obvious pick here, but it depends on how he built it, of course. You know, if he built it very aggressively, and the Warriors' early game removal, like Fiery War Axe and Acolytes of Pain, are going to be problematic, much the same way that Powder lost to Massan, then it really depends on the build, of course. So
Yeah.
Paladin control here, very heavy control, could beat that Warrior deck outright.
I think Mage is also viable, but I think it really depends on the type of Mage that Massan is going to bring to this tournament. If it's a Freeze Mage, then 100% no. But at the same time, if it's a Freeze Mage, you would think that Massan would have banned Warrior. So I'm guessing it's probably not a Freeze Mage. The other options are like a Mech Mage, an Echo Mage, something of like a hybrid of the two, or something even like a Fatigue Mage. And I think Fatigue Mage is also, it's something that is Massan might be considering, because I've seen him play it on stream a bit, right?
Okay.
So he might have been just like practicing for this tournament, right?
I don't know. I feel like Mage. I mean, Mech Mage is obviously kind of a toss-up depending on how fast your deck goes. But I really like the Giants Mage with secrets that a lot of people have decided just to not play anymore. It's a deck that's just phased out completely. Yet it's still a pretty decent archetype. But it goes back to that Echo of Medivh kind of ghetto mage that you just don't see very frequently. That's kind of the archetype that would fall into, I guess. And that has pretty good value against Warriors because they just don't have enough removal pieces to deal with everything.
Yeah, the game's about to start, and we're about to find out what kind of mage is Massan actually bringing to this tournament.
I hope it's Echo of Medivh / Giants duplicate. I just like the ability for mages to duplicate stuff against Warriors because it's getting them so much value.
Well, I hope it's Fatigue Mage. We can't actually see Massan's hand right now.
Oh well.
Fatigue Mage is fun. It's just so different from every single other deck.
Yeah, and it's very skill demanding, and it is Mech Mage, it seems.
I'm a little disappointed. This is going to be a pretty fast beatdown, kind of, especially because there's Snow Chugger on the field.
Yeah, well, it's going to be pretty easy for the Warrior with that double Armor Smith Fiery War Axe start. I don't think it gets much better if you're a Warrior in this position.
Yeah, that's true. Even if Snow Chugger gets on the board, then he just pretty much dies to the War Axe, and then Massan doesn't have anything to play on, anything good to play on 3.
He has to find a Harvest Golem or Spider Tank right now.
Yeah, either of those will kind of bring him back to the game. The 3/3 Tinkertown technician is not that great.
Yeah, oh wow. Completely off curve. Completely off curve here.
The funny thing is Blast Mage is typically like one of the best cards in this deck. But if you Blast Mage and Armor Smith, just
yeah, and he can even get
the
the Shield Slam here by attacking the 3/3 if he wants to. But he doesn't. Wow, okay, he's planning around some Cruel Taskmaster hyper value here.
Yeah, I'd say Cruel Taskmaster is pretty good in this scenario.
Yeah, it's gonna give him a total of what is it, 6 armor? Like he's gonna get 2 from the Armor Smith, and he trades into the Tinkertown Technician.
I think he's just gonna get 4 armor here.
Yeah, it's 4 armor and then Shield Slam trade. I mean, you do have to Shield Slam trade unless you're not afraid of. He's not really afraid of Blast Mage, is he?
I think he's thinking that the Yeti will probably trade this turn, so he'll still have the option to Shield Slam next turn.
Yeah, but I mean, you're risking your ability to very effectively deal with the board, and now, well, then again, he does have Sludge Belcher and Brawl as follow-up, so those are actually pretty threatening, and they're good ways to just reset the board completely. So right. I kind of see what he's going for. If the Yeti lives, though, the second Blast Mage is going to be pretty sick.
But the Blast Mage lives. It's also not that great.
Yeah, well, it does remove all the armor, so the Shield Slam's value just goes down drastically. And look at that. Snow Chugger, Blast Mage, no weapon usage, no more Brawl can be played. There's a reversing switch in case Sludge Belcher comes out.
This is just the power of aggro decks like Blast Mage or like Mech Mage. They basically force your opponent to have answers, and if they don't have those set answers, then they're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and this is pretty much like the reason Mech Mage is so much stronger than other decks. I think it's just straight up the Blast Mage. I can't think of another tool. I mean, I want to say Snow Chugger is good, and really it is, but I don't think anything compares to the Blast Mage in terms of mech synergy anywhere in the game at the moment.
Yeah, but well, not only do you have the Blast Mage, you also have the Mech Warper, and it's like it's kind of one of those unfair cards, quote
Yeah.
unquote unfair, like the Undertaker, and we see that Massan also plays the Undertaker, so he plays both unfair cards in the game.
Yeah, the Mech Warper snowballs on its own by you play both, and Undertaker also snowballs with the rest of the deck. And Clockwork Gnome being a Death Rattle and Mech makes this even more viable. And right now, there's no way for him to override his own weapon, which would trigger an AOE to allow for execute. So I am still feeling like very early in the game, the decision not to trade with that Yeti just cost him the game. I don't know. I feel it was a bit weird.
Yeah,
I think a brawl would have been useful a bit later on.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much the point where you want to use Brawl, where your opponent has used all of his cards, and he doesn't have anything to refill the board. Whereas before he brawled 3 minions, he killed off 2 minions for 5 mana, which is not the best value.
It's not over yet, but there's a lot of damage on the mage's board, and all it takes is a fireball, and now he's frozen again for an entire turn. So he needs to live at least one complete turn. And there's 7 damage right now with the reversing switch, 8 if you count the hero power. And frozen again with that Death Bite.
This game is so close.
Yeah, it could come down to a Sludge Belcher getting perfect value, but if you look at the Sludge Belcher, if it gets switched, it then dies to the reversing switch.
Yeah.
Or even Tinkertown ping attack and attack to freeze the enemy once again.
And then pretty much at any point, a Fireball or a Frostbolt can be drawn, just ending the game right there.
Exactly, like a Jeeves, for instance, which is a really good card in Mech Mage. Ooh.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good, because how many effective ways does the Warrior really have to deal with this?
Yeah, it's funny that the Mech Mage, even though it typically has a lower curve, both players are basically running out of cards right now.
Yep. And Powder just saw the Dr. Boom and is in the biggest possible world of hurt, I guess. There's very little other way to put it.
Yeah,
is Sludge Belcher even enough here? No, I don't think it is.
I think, the game is over.
Yeah, the game is over on the basis of the reversing switch at least. Not even that, but that just seals it for 100% sure.
Maybe he should cloak his own Belcher for value.
Yeah, because if you cloak the Belcher and it has both taunt and stealth, then they have to attack it, but then they can't because it's stealthed, so the game glitches and you automatically win.
Not the best advice for newer players out there, but sure, let's go with that.
Yeah, initially when the game was released, there was actually a bug where you could stealth up a taunt minion and it would just completely prevent the opponent from doing anything. So you would master of this guy's, let's say, a 1 mana, Goldshire Footman, you would win the game right away.
Wow, that's pretty sick, I guess.
It was a big bug.
It's kind of like when Mamaz went on stream and he basically from Unstable Portal he had Melganis plus the 4/4 that cloaks Master
of Disguise. Yeah.
He used both and he basically won the game right there.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, how can you lose that? Oh, that's crazy. That's one of those things where one day in a tournament we'll see somebody with exactly the combination of cards that he needs to win off of Unstable Portal. And then we'll have an everlasting moment of awesomeness on Reddit. That'd be cool. So that's the game. That's the match. That is for Massan versus Powder. So Massan taking it 3-1 against Powder, who got completely taken off guard, I think, by the Mech Mage. I believe there were a few misplays here and there, but nothing, major or out of the ordinary. Yeah, I feel everything was well played by both players.
Fairly typical Mech Mage play. It just kind of curves out. Even though Mech Mage didn't get the best draw, it curved out pretty well just by the virtue of having relatively low drops. And it had the Blast Mage 5 attack to face, hurts a lot, I would say. And it just beat down the Warrior to a bloody pulp.
Yeah, and I think that Dr. Boom at the end there just sealed the game. It could have been a Frostbolt, it could have been a Fireball, it could have been an Arcane Intellect into card draw, it could have been a Jeeves, it could have been so many things. But ultimately, I think despite the double Armor Smith, I didn't really expect it to go that bad for the Warrior. I thought his starting hand was pretty decent.
Yeah, War Axe and 2 Armor Smith. Exactly what you want, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that could have been a little different considering different outcomes. But yeah, Powder just losing those games. No DCs at least this time, so the games were legitimately won, so that's pretty awesome. And the next match we're going to have is going to be between Amaz and Neria, right?
Yeah, we're actually going to be going into the round of 8 now. All round of 16 matches have been finished. And let's take a look at the lineup. We have Amaz versus Naria as the first round of 8 match. Afterwards, we'll have Firebat versus Gara. Then we have, I believe, we have Kalento versus... Who's Kalento facing? Hosty or...
Hosty, I think it might be Hosty because Hosty won against Life Coach, I believe. So it's Kalento against Hosty, and then there's...
In the final match, we have Tice versus...
Kaldi?
Kaldi, yeah.
That won against RDU. Tentatively, I don't have the brackets right now in front of me, so...
Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds about right. That's about what I would expect from casting the matches last week, so...
Well, no, it's not Kaldi. Kaldi lost against Amaz.
Oh, that's right. That's how Amaz qualified against Neria. Never mind. So it's Amaz, Neria, Gara, and Firebat. And then...
Kalento, Hosty, and then for the final match, it's going to be... This is a bit embarrassing. It's
Yeah, I just don't have the brackets right now. I know Massan's gonna be
Massan Tice. Yeah, Massan just won, of course.
Oh, good casters, right? Hire them again. No, please never.
right.
So it's just I mean, we're missing one match, I think, in the round of 8 after this.
Yeah, we're just gonna start with Amaz versus Naria, and we're gonna blast through the rest of round of 8, and we'll be back right after this break.
Yep.